everyone. This is my blog post number 2 for Black Psychology, and today I'm going to be talking about the racial identity theory and cultural mistrust. This chapter focused on age, skin tone, education, but in class, I feel like we mostly touched on socialization. Also, the book touched on familial socialization, and that basically is what determines Black racial identity. And Black people that were more racially socialized at home tended to have a stronger connection with their racial identity. The group that I was paired with this week, we talked about racial socialization and if it was more influenced by your school environment, which is like teachers, your classmates, advisors, or if it's like your home life, which is like your family, uncles, siblings. Hypothesis for the study would be that racial socialization is more influenced from your parents versus your school life. But then again, I'm a little biased because I went to a predominantly white school for most of my life, besides maybe kindergarten. So I was not going to get any type of Black socialization from public schooling. Basically, my socialization, when it comes to like pop culture, came from my siblings, my sisters. They are 7 and 10 years older than me, so they influenced me on what I listen to with like music, how to dress, just different things like that. My parents also influenced, just me being proud of being Black too. But when it comes to who I am specifically, I think more so pop culture was influenced by my sisters. The next chapter touched on cultural mistrust, and this is spawned back to slavery with being treated brutally from white counterparts. Even in the 19th century with the Tuskegee experiments, and present day, the mistrust of police, which is not all white people, but one incident that I can really think about in my mind is the one of Philando Castile.
I have to tell you, I do have a firearm on me. Don't reach for it then. Don't pull it out. Don't pull it out.
With that, I just don't understand how a supposedly rational, sane person that's supposed to protect the community and is allowed to carry around a gun could act like that in such a moment. It's really just disgusting to know, even on top of that, there's a 4-year-old in the back seat and you're just going to start firing off into a car. I believe without racial mistrust, there would be no way for us to survive as a community. Because if there weren't certain hidden guidelines for us to apply in different situations with dealing with the police, anything like that, I just don't understand how we could have thrived to see where we are today. Another idea that I agreed with in the book was the one of Taylor and Brown, and they argued that Black mistrust doesn't start at birth, but only kind of develops from finding out different stories that have been passed down from generation to generation. And the only way to get rid of this is to get rid of racial discrimination. And these are kind of shaky ideas because it would be really hard to get rid of racism in America. But I mean, you can only try. And so with this, I'm gonna actually sit here and try to think about it. I don't know if I necessarily have racial mistrust. I feel like somewhere in the back of my mind, if I really dug it out, I could think of a scenario, but I can't think of one off the top of my head. But I am cautious of different things like dealing with the police and stuff like that. You don't act too crazy. I don't really think of any cultural mistrust for me. I can think of, I'm sorry, I could think of specific things for my parents. And so both of my parents have kind of a mistrust in doctors. My dad doesn't really like to get shots because he doesn't know what's going to be in the medicine, and if it's he believes that it low-key might be a scam. And then for psychologists, which is pretty ironic because I want to be one, my mom feels like you shouldn't tell everyone everything because you don't know exactly what they're going to put down, and they might label you as this and it might come back to haunt you. Also, I when I think about my parents and think about cultural mistrust, I think that they would never go to counseling, even though some people should. They would never go to counseling a day in their life, even if they really needed it. And so I feel like that doesn't necessarily, for them specifically, that doesn't necessarily have to do with cultural mistrust. That just has to do with them wanting to keep their business private. And that's just kind of, I don't know, that's just kind of one of our like traditions. And that obviously has to do with mistrust. But even when it comes to like talking to different family members about certain things, they don't indulge.